Now let's take a look at your module materials. If you aren't familiar with podcasting, it's a great way to learn on the go. I've provided for you 2 examples of podcasts for teachers that I especially like. The Cult of Pedagogy by Jennifer Gonzalez is a funny look at teaching and learning with some serious content that will help you to become a better teacher. This is one I listen to regularly. The other example that I've provided for you is Teachers on Fire. This is an inspiring podcast series that features a different educator each week who has influenced our field. I think you'll like this one too. I've also included some podcasts for students. This is a small sampling of the wealth of audio materials that are out there to engage your students in better listening skills and deeper content knowledge. Finally, I have included NPR's Curriculum Guide for Educators on podcasting. Here you'll find lesson plans and tips and a logical sequence for introducing podcasting to your class. Now let's take a look at the podcasting tool we'll use this week, which is called Spreaker. Click on the Spreaker.com link. Here we are on the Spreaker homepage. The first thing you'll need to do is sign up for a free account. You're going to notice that there are some plans that you have to pay for, but you won't need any of those to create a high quality podcast using this tool. So once you've got an account, click on Create a Podcast. You're going to see 3 options now. You can upload a recording that you've made with another tool. You can import a podcast that's already done and published, or you can use the middle option, Record or Go Live. This is the option we want to use. Click on the yellow arrow. When you do this, up comes the Spreaker Studio, and you'll see that you have 2 options for using the studio. You can download it and use it locally on your computer. If you don't have a fast internet connection, this might be your best option. The other thing you can do though is use the tool on the web by clicking on Open the app. So let's get started and open the studio. Here's the Spreaker Studio. Without getting too fancy, you can simply record your voice, and it's a fairly high quality recording, and then you publish it and you have a podcast. But if you want to do a little bit more, there are sound effects that you can play with, and you can add those to your recording. You can also use the plus button to upload music. If you feel like you want to add music to your podcast, you need to make sure that that music is copyright free, that it is licensed under Creative Commons, and that you won't be violating any copyright law by using it. So a place where you can get copyright free music is Pod Summit. So that might be something you check into if you're interested. You can see that I have added 2 music tracks to play with in my podcast. Adding music or sound effects is completely optional for this assignment. Keep your focus on your content first. All right, so within your recording panel, you can play a soundtrack. You can change your volume, which I'll do here. And really, that's all you need to know to get started. We're going to click on the Start button, and you have 2 options. The first is a live broadcast, and the second is to do your podcast offline. We're going to use the second option. Before you push that button to go offline, it's important to note that once you click on it, you will begin recording. So get your podcast script together and make sure you're in a nice quiet place, and let's get started. Okay, I'm going to narrate as I do this. Notice that the clock is ticking. over here in the upper left-hand corner. Notice also that I have a pause button. It's often helpful when you're completing your podcast to pause, kind of catch your breath, and then resume where you left off. So you can do that. Notice that I have my playlist down here. Okay, so this is kind of a simulation. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to begin with a little bit of music and then launch into my actual podcast. So I'll start my music here. Hi, this is Ellen. Welcome to my podcast, Teaching with Technology. This week we're going to talk about project-based learning. There are 4 essential principles to project-based learning. The first is that project-based learning is a problem-centered and solution-focused approach to learning. Secondly, project-based learning encourages teamwork and classroom support. Third, project-based learning allows the students to work with actual sample data and data collection. And finally, project-based learning allows for continuous quality improvement on the part of teachers and their students. In this type of teaching and learning becomes a collaborative process. There's a shared responsibility between the teacher and the student. Time constraints are flexible, and students have a well-defined sense of where they want to go with their learning. Teachers draw on a vast array of teaching and learning strategies and emphasize ongoing questioning, expert assistance, and critical analysis. Okay, I'm going to hit the pause there, and let's pretend that I have completely finished my podcast, and now I am ready to review it and perhaps publish it. So I'm going to click on the stop button, and now I have my new recording, and I'm able to listen to that recording by clicking the play button. If I don't like it, I can delete it and start over, and I can publish it, and the publish option when you're ready is the one that you want. So click on publish. And you're going to find that you get this pop-up that asks you to identify different elements of your podcast. In order to publish your podcast episode, you need to fill in this information. So I gave my podcast a title, I gave it a description, I gave it 3 tags. It's going to go in my show called Teaching with Technology. So here you can see you can have multiple shows. Think of a show like the record album or the CD, and then you have the individual songs on it. Individual songs are like the episodes in your podcast series. We can choose a file and have a picture associated with the podcast. And then when you come down to this part, you don't want to check explicit content and you don't want to check private, because I need to be able to listen to your podcast. And then it's up to you whether or not you want to allow for your podcast to be download enabled, which would mean that people can download it and listen to it later on an MP3 player. Okay, so now we're ready. This is all filled in, and we click on publish. And we should see here in a moment a quick flash telling us, here it is, that the episode was successfully published. Now we're done with the studio, and we go back to the Spreaker homepage. Make sure you're still logged in, and then click on the menu right next to your avatar and select Dashboard. From here, you're going to see the title of your show, and you can see I associated some artwork with my show, and you click on View and Edit. And now I'll see all of the podcasts that have been added to that show, and the most recent one will be on top. So my most recent podcast, What is Project-Based Learning?